So the DPA gives the President authority to take various actions to ensure that the supply of materials and services are necessary for our national defense. Gives the President the authority to prioritize government contracts, waive international trade agreements, offer incentives within the domestic market to enhance production of critical materials and technologies, if deemed necessary for the national defense. We've seen many benefits in Illinois. Recently saw DPA invoked to help resources in shipbuilding, not because Illinois is on a port, but because Illinois has a lot of steel manufacturing that was important to that need, and that's an important issue. Over the years, Congress has amended the definition of national defense to include emergency preparedness, energy production activities, critical infrastructure protection, restoration, homeland security. We, of course, saw applications when we were facing novel challenges, national security from the COVID-19 pandemic to the increasingly devastating effects of climate change. To tackle those issues, the executive branch has appropriately used the DPA to produce ventilators, vaccines, as well as to accelerate domestic manufacturing of clean energy technologies. In 2022, the Biden administration invoked the DPA to develop and reshape supply chains for transformers and other grid components, solar panels, heat pumps, hydrogen fuel cells. That's relevant because the Department of Defense, on a bipartisan basis going back for decades, has listed climate change as a threat to national security, all the way back to 2008, saying that it must be a part of every strategic decision the department makes. I wish my Republican colleagues didn't criticize the use of the DPA to support cleaner and cheaper energy sources, because it's important. We want electric grid resiliency, but we politicize this. We accuse President Biden of accusing the DPA to advance his agenda. I would argue that the DPA is an important tool to mobilize the U.S. industrial base to meet the demands of national defense, including energy security and independence. And I'd note that President Trump recently invoked the DPA to promote the development of nuclear energy, which the President argues is necessary to achieve energy independence. Also a cleaner source, maybe not a cheaper source, but let's not pick winners, but let's make sure that we do acknowledge that energy security is important. But I do want to acknowledge that I think my Republican colleagues raise a good point. Congress has a long history of solving problems by asking the executive branch to solve them. And then we have a long history of complaining that the executive branch abuses the power that we gave them. And we can choose where that sits, but that is an ongoing issue. And I think a lot of us on the Democratic side have concerns about how the current occupant of the White House is also abusing some of these powers. We've seen this not in the DPA, but in the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, where the President has declared that there's an emergency that requires the imposition of tariffs. IEPA is not a tariff statute, but it's being used that way. We've seen more recently in the Twitter feud between the President and Elon Musk, Steve Bannon saying that the President should use the DPA to seize SpaceX in retaliation. That is not how the DPA works. And so in this context, I think it is appropriate in this moment that we are discussing how Congress intended the DPA to function and how, if at all, we should tweak the DPA to make sure that Congress continues to fulfill its responsibilities as the Article I branch, and I would submit to you the best branch among the three in Congress. Look forward to the discussion, and I yield back.